Where are we at in society today? Come after me. I'm a man. I'm 40.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Every single week, I put my freaking heart and soul into this. I don't go out there and laugh. It's not funny. It's not fun. Nothing's funny to me. I don't want to go out there and get embarrassed on Monday Night Football in front of everybody.
I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
So ain't nothing changed from yesterday. Still the same person I was yesterday. And I got the same thing for you that I had yesterday. You know why I'm here.
You play to win the game. You don't play to just play it. That's the great thing about sports. You play to win. And I don't care if you don't have any wins. You go play to win. When you start telling me it doesn't matter, then retire. Get out. Because it matters.
You know, your favorite team might not have been in action last night, but that doesn't mean there weren't plenty of storylines to give us some action to talk about on a Tuesday morning. Welcome, everybody, to X's and Bros throughout the great state of Michigan. I'm Matt Shepard. Trent Valley is our producer, and our Meyer hotline is open for you, 866-838-4843. You can always text the program, Sports Radio, to 21,000, wherever it is you may be listening, whether it be MichiganSportsNetwork.com or on our great station affiliates. And we love our partnership there. You can also watch us, and we are live on X at XB Mornings, live on Facebook, and live, of course, on YouTube at X's and Bros. Red Wings snap a 5-game slide with a 6-5 shootout win in Buffalo. I'm not going to lie. 5-3, middle of the second, didn't like it. Thought this team, scoring-wise, isn't coming back. The flow that Buffalo had, the ease in which they came off the boards, there was a goal by Buffalo midway through the second by Jason Zucker. It's right around the, 10-minute mark, 10.5-minute mark, somewhere along those lines. And how Ryan McLeod was able to feed Zucker cross ice was beyond me. He had 2 Red Wings on him, and somehow he was able to feed Zucker, who comes up the left side and ends up scoring and gives Buffalo a 5-3 lead. And I thought, that's it, man. I mean, the way this team is playing, it's over. And then Andrew Kopp, 10.5 in through the third. Andrew Kopp scores a nice goal. Mo Sider rings the bar, and it goes in, and it's 5-5. They go to overtime, no blood drawn. They go to the shootout. Raymond scores in the shootout. Larkin scores in the shootout. And Detroit walks away with a 6-5 win. Sebastian Cossa made 12 saves in relief of Ville Husso. So he wins in his debut. Larkin and JT Comfer each had 2 assists. Mo Sider and Lucas Raymond each had a goal and assist. A much-needed win for Detroit. And I'll take it. You should be happy about it, too. There should be still concerns about how this team plays. But this team needs to string together a ton of wins, like a bunch of them. They just snapped, as we mentioned, a 5-game slide. They finally win a 1-goal game. 1-goal games in 10 of their last 11, and I believe 8 in a row. And you've got to find a way, not just to win those games, but you've got to parlay this into more victories if you want to have people interested in your team. I mean, it's as simple as that. Tigers have reportedly signed 37-year-old right-hander Alex Cobb. This is where Trent goes to the graphics department and says, do we have balloons and all these party fun gifts to give to people so they can, blow the kazoos, launch the balloons, and everybody can say, whoopee.
Alex Cobb is a Tiger. Yay.
Yeah. 13-year vet, started 3 games, went 2-1 last year with a 2.76 ERA for Cleveland. Hip and shoulder injury is what caused him some problems there. Has not won more than 9 games since 2018. Not always the pitcher's fault. In fairness to him, he did start 28 games in 2022 and 2023, so that's a positive. He was an all-star for San Francisco in 2023. For what that's worth, everybody has to be represented. Tigers are going to be his 6th team of his career. That's okay. All that matters really is you can go out there, take the ball every day, and keep your team competitive. He made $10 million last year. Has never made more than $15 million in his career. And I hate to bring up money. I do. But oftentimes it goes hand in hand with baseball because these contracts are right there in your face. Juan Soto, 15 years, $765 million. And you have to talk about it when you talk about the Tigers. You do. Because the reports are that, they didn't want to give that much money to Luis Severino and got outbid by the Oakland/Sacramento/Las Vegas A's. And we know that they're on a tight budget. It really is a Seinfeld episode where you can hear people say to Scott Harris, you're careful with money. I'm cheap? You think I'm cheap? Listen, I'm not working right now. When I worked, I spent, baby. And maybe it's not Scott Harris in that point. Maybe it's more like Chris Ilitch.
I think it is.
All we know is that a big reason Detroit wanted Alex Cobb is because you could get him on a 1-year deal. It's a reclamation project, okay? It's the next Michael Lorenzen is what it is. And let's hope it turns out that way, right? It's the next Lorenzen, Flaherty, Maeda. That's what it is. They're not looking to bring a guy in. Like, you'll read all this stuff. Oh, he's a great locker room guy. He's a great clubhouse guy. He's a great culture guy. You're bringing him in for the back end of your rotation, primarily, right? I mean, at least that's what you hope, because you've got Skubal, you've got Olsen, and you're hoping Jackson Jobe and Casey Mize filter in there somewhere, and then it's Alex Cobb. He's not being brought in to be the 2. And in fairness, if that's what the Tigers believe, then why do you need him for more than a 1-year deal? This is the perfect scenario for a guy who is 37 and isn't going to take a lot of money to get him. Save the money, bring a guy in like this, spend the money on the right-handed power bat. Does that sound? I mean, do you feel like that's okay? I'm making a case for the Tigers here. I'm not thrilled with it. I'd love to bring in a guy like Walker Buehler, even though he's been injured. But a 2-time All-Star who gets after it, a bit of a bulldog, very similar to that of the great Oral Hershiser, right, in terms of attitude. But how much is that going to cost, especially a guy who's been injured? Oh, wait, did I say injured? Alex Cobb's been injured. He's had Tommy John. He's had the hip. He's had the shoulder. There are red flags, no doubt, but there are with a lot of guys. That's why oftentimes guys are made available, okay? There are red flags, and teams don't necessarily want to do that. So there you go. How much is he going to make? We don't know. Can't imagine that it would be more than the $10 million he made a year ago based off his numbers from a year ago, but there you go. Week 14 in the NFL closes out. The Bengals win in Dallas 27-20. Really good teams find ways to win. Really bad teams find ways to lose. Both these teams have the same record. Neither are going to the playoffs. Dallas just seems to find a way, right? Just don't seem to be able to handle any type of in-game success. Had an opportunity, special teams lets them down. Can't recover anything on a fumble, on a punt. Just shades of Leon Lett. Fall on it, give your team the opportunity, and go forward from there. Instead, ball goes back to Cincinnati. Joe Burrow down the field. Joe Burrow, 3 touchdowns, 369 yards. Has had an unbelievable season. Just as good a game from Jamar Chase. 14 catches, 177 yards, and 2 scores. And Cincinnati wins it. We've got some college basketball news that you and I talked about yesterday that came to fruition. We'll talk of that when we come back on X's and Bros as we kickstart a Tuesday morning for you.
Hey, Michigan, let's go big.
Back with you on X's and Bros. We're going to get to the basketball news that we were talking about here in a moment. I just, when you watch other teams, how often do you think really, really happy and really proud that the Lions play the way they do? I think about it quite a bit. I'm watching Cincy and Dallas, and Dallas gets a blocked punt. Good for them. You know, I mean, they get the blocked punt. It's on, pretend like Cincy's going left or right, all right? Dallas gets the block, and what happens, you get a chance to recover it. And a Dallas player, I forget who, has a chance to just grab it and fall down. Lets the ball come into his chest, bounces around. Cincy recovers it. Keeps the drive or keeps their hopes alive. And shortly thereafter, Joe Burrow hits Jamar Chase down the right sideline.
The Cowboys player, by the way, that let it go through his hands, that was Amani Oruwariye, former Detroit Lion.
Oof.
And Penn State product as well.
When Jamar Chase scores, you know, by then I already had my fantasy football win, so I was happy about it. Big game from Jamar
I thought of you, Shep, because Chase had a huge game, and you also had Brandon Cooks going. He scored a touchdown.
Yeah, 14 catches, 177 yards for Jamar Chase, and 2 touchdowns.
Remarkable.
He and Justin Jefferson are just, to me, they're simply amazing. They are just unbelievable wide receivers.
Both from LSU, too.
I love watching them play. So 27-20 since he wins it. Not that there's anything special to write home about if you're the Bengals now at what is it, 5-8. But Joe Burrow has had, and anybody who denies this just has not watched enough football this year. Joe Burrow has been an incredible player this year. He leads the league in passing. I don't know what numbers matter most to you. And based on our conversation yesterday, it would appear that, because Sam Darnold, we had a small discussion about Sam Darnold, that maybe touchdowns don't matter that much. Joe Burrow leads the league in that category. It can't be yards. He leads the league in that category. Could it be completion percentage? Perhaps. He's top 10 in that category. Oh, that's right. It's wins. Right. It's wins. When it comes to Joe Burrow, because there's only 5. If it comes to somebody else at the same position who's played as many snaps, they don't belong in the conversation. Remember what the aura around Joe Burrow and the Bengals was at the beginning of the year. How they struggle so much at the beginning of the season, right? It's usually not a good September or October for him. Numerous times. They come out of the gate 0-3, right? It's tough.
I believe the updated stat with this year is Joe Burrow is now 1-9. Well, the Bengals, I should say.
Bengals.
The Cincinnati Bengals are 1-9.
Associated with him.
In weeks 1 and 2 under Joe Burrow.
Right. So it's 0-2, 0-3 to start the year on a pretty regular basis. So people hold that against him, and I get it, right? But how come he's not being mentioned as MVP? There's one reason, and one reason alone.
Yep.
It's because his team's under 500. And I'm not saying people are wrong here. They want to shove Lamar Jackson. They want to shove Patrick Mahomes before, not now. They want to shove Josh Allen. They want to shove Saquon Barkley. I don't disagree with those names at all. I think Jared Goff belongs in there too. But how you overlook this guy when he leads the league in 2 primary categories, a third when he's in top 10. If you want to look at picks, he's got 33 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, you guys. And I didn't make this to be a Joe Burrow segment, so my apologies for going off on a Cincinnati rant. I think he's a phenomenal player. And, when you look at last year, everybody would lauded, the comeback of Tua Tagovailoa. 29 touchdowns, 14 picks, right? Last year, we loved what Jared Goff did. I did. You did. 30 touchdowns, 12 picks. All right. Lamar Jackson was named MVP a year ago. 24 touchdowns, 7 picks. I get it. The rushing thing separates him. I'm just giving you numbers for perspective. And he threw for roughly 3,700 yards. Joe Burrow already, I mean, you look at it, 33, as I mentioned, 6, and he's thrown for more yards this year than Lamar Jackson threw for all of last year. And he's not in the conversation. You know, I'm asking you to look at it for, let's steal a page from a college football. Who gets invited to the Heisman? They had 4 names that have been invited to New York. All right. So if that's the case, who would be the 4 names invited to New York if that's how they presented? It's not really MVP, but Offensive Player of the Year. Saquon Barkley for sure, right? For me.
No question.
Okay. Who else would it be? Who else would be in that discussion? Because I know numbers only take you so far. I understand that numbers are easy to fall on. You need to watch players all year long. You need to go deeper than numbers. But as I've said ad nauseum, quarterbacks are the only position. Go to ProFootballReference.com. There's nothing in there in wins and losses for past great players. Okay, give me Bruce Smith, give me Reggie White. There's nothing that says how many wins he has. Give me Barry Sanders, give me Walter Payton, give me Earl Campbell. Nothing that says wins. Go ahead and find Rob Gronkowski or Tony Gonzalez. No wins. Paul Krause is the all-time leader in interceptions. They've got that. They've got tackles. They've got starts. There's nothing about wins. But his quarterback, Fran Tarkenton, there are wins there. The great Howie Long, no wins, but Ken Stabler wins.
There's a win-loss record tied to the quarterback page.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Yep.
So then what do you do? That's what it's about, right? That's what many people feel like it's about. So Josh Allen is going to New York. He's going in the green room or on stage. Saquon Barkley is going there, and rightfully so. You're trying to tell me that Joe Burrow, with those numbers, already exceeded that of the MVP in passing a year ago, already exceeded his touchdown passes, already, and the touchdown to interception ratio. You know, we tied those numbers to quarterbacks, and I get it. We tie the wins numbers to quarterbacks. But oftentimes it can be misleading too, because you're telling me, okay, they can't score enough to win. Obviously they can score enough. How many mistakes is he making? He's thrown 6 picks. That's it. Maybe he's running into some sacks. That could be. It could cause maybe those picks or maybe those interceptions were a serious problem. That could be too. All right, at the wrong time is what I'm saying, right? Serious problem for you at the wrong time. It's a team, though, that they can flat out score. Now, they're not the Lions, but they rank 6th in scoring. So is it their defense?
I think it's their defense, their division. Well, it's been an imperfect storm for the Bengals this season.
It's been an imperfect storm for Joe Burrow.
Yep.
Okay. He's getting penalized. Says all the time, ultimate team sport. He's getting penalized because his team isn't good enough. But he and his offense sure as hell seem good enough to me. On top of that, and I know we got to hit a break here, but on top of that, who else has he helped? And he's been helped by this player too, right? Jamar Chase leads the league in receptions or receiving yards, excuse me. He also leads the league in touchdowns with 15. Joe Burrow's done his part, man. I think he belongs in the conversation. And for some reason, people don't have them there. We got to hit a timeout. When we come back, I promise, we'll get to Michigan and Michigan State. Something we talked about yesterday has come true to form, and rightfully so after this.
Enjoy huge savings, thoughtful gifts, stockings.
Back with you on X's and Bros. Trent brought up a really good point. He said, if Calvin Johnson in 2012, when he had close to 2,000 yards receiving, if the Lions were better than 4-12, could he have won Offensive Player of the Year or MVP? That year, Adrian Peterson was MVP and Offensive Player of the Year, and that's an incredible accomplishment considering Peyton Manning threw for 4,600 yards, 37 touchdowns. Tom Brady threw for over 4,800 yards and 34 touchdowns. And even a guy like Matthew Stafford threw for close to 5,000 yards, but he wasn't even close in touchdowns and threw to the other team way too often, and their team was 4-12. Manning and the Broncos that year were 13-3. Brady and the Pats that year were 12-4. So
and Adrian Peterson, who won the MVP, the Vikings went 10-6. They didn't even win their division, but they went 10-6 and made the playoffs. So the question is, could Calvin Johnson have won it if the Lions were better? How much better would the Lions have had to be? History shows, and that year was a perfect example. You don't even necessarily have to win your division. You just have to be
that's okay.
above 500 to make the playoffs to win the MVP.
I don't even think you necessarily should have to win your division. I mean, if these are individual awards,
right? So
I don't think it's crucial that you win your division. I think the bigger question is, and as we associate it to Joe Burrow, and then we'll move on, and that is, do you have to have a winning record? And it sure seems like that's the case. All right, basketball-wise, yesterday we told you Michigan and Michigan State should be and will be ranked, and that's exactly the case. The AP Top 25 poll came out. Both of them are ranked. U of M 8-1, winners of 7 in a row, are ranked 14th. They're going to play Arkansas at Madison Square Garden as part of the Jimmy V Classic tonight. The Spartans pulling at number 21 in the AP poll as well. And Michigan center Vlad Golden, who had an incredible week, and Michigan's win, I guess you would call it an upset win at Wisconsin, because Wisconsin was 11th in the country. I don't think the Kohl Center gets really loud. I mean, if you saw a span of the cameras looking at the crowd there, and I've been there plenty, that it doesn't get super intimidating. I don't think Chrysler Center gets super intimidating either. The places that get really loud and intimidating are taken over primarily by students. And I get why schools have to limit the number of student sections, is because the other places bring in more money. The other tickets going to people who are just fans are a lot more lucrative, okay, because you're spending money. But I've said this time and time again, I think there's a couple of places that get, I think, really loud in the Big Ten. Mackey at Purdue primarily. And I think that's because the student section is right over the visiting bench. It gets super loud there. Breslin Center gets really loud too. And that's the students are right behind the broadcast vantage point, right middle of the floor, which is where I think they should be. I think that's the best place for them. At Michigan, the student section is in a similar place. They just don't get as many students going to there. But Vlad Golden, Big Ten Player of the Week, averaged 22 points and 8 boards in the wins over Wisconsin and over Iowa. Central Michigan has hired a new head coach. Matt Drinkle is their new coach. He's a 42-year-old. He comes from Army, where he served the last 6 seasons, including the last 2 years as offensive line coach. He was the offensive coordinator a year ago, but it's this year that Army has really stood out offensively. They lead the nation in yards per game, and they lead the nation in scoring, which is pretty interesting. The Chips, in the meantime, could use something like that. They were 4-8 this year. They've had 3 straight years of losing seasons. Here's our poll question of the day. Who's more to blame for the Red Wings struggles? Even with the win last night, it's a chore to get a win.
It's pulling teeth.
It really is one of those situations where you look at this team, and when they gain a lead, at least in my mind, when they gain a lead, you doubt they can hold it. When they're behind, you doubt that they can come back. There's the twinge in your mind that just goes, I just don't see this happening. unfair to compare, but when the Lions are down, they get the football. I'm convinced they're going to score. When a team plays the Lions, I look at them and I say, you don't have a chance today. I think they're that good. The Red Wings used to be that way with big names, of course, but they weren't just big names. I mean, they were accomplished players who could deliver on a pretty regular basis, and that's a really hard thing to do. Larkin has delivered. Lucas Raymond has delivered. Alex DeBrincat, for the most part, has delivered. Detroit has been so bad on the back end and so bad at net, and that's easy to say. But as I told you yesterday, when we gave our hero and heel, my heel was the Red Wings because of the issues that they have offensively, not just defensively, but offensively as well. And it's not just, I mean, the first line's been really good. The other lines, the 2, 3, and 4 lines, have just not pulled their weight. So I just didn't feel it. And when we asked the poll question, who's been to blame? Has it been Steve Yzerman, who has constructed this roster? Has it been Derek Lalonde, who's coached this roster, or has it been the players? I mean, I can't just say it's defense, and that's originally what I had. I had goalies / defense. That's not fair because the second line, the third line, as good as they were last night, they have not pulled their weight. They play a team like Buffalo, and Buffalo is very similar to the Red Wings. Wins-wise, points-wise, overall struggles-wise. They've not lost 7 in a row, by the way. Home and road record. Goals for they're a -7 in goal differential. Detroit's a -15. So maybe there's a little bit of a difference there. It's not – I hate taking things away from teams that have accomplished something. It's hard to win, period. The Wings got the win, especially on the road. Good for them. They got it done. That's awesome. But it doesn't make me write home and say, everything's okay now. The Wings are fixed. Let's go. Let's use this as, a jumping off point. Because I just don't see how this team stays competitive. They just have not been, yes, I'll use the word, consistent enough for me. All right. Alex Cobb, as we mentioned, you can vote as often as you want, by the way. Do so by going to our Twitter page, at XB Mornings. I've retweeted it on my Twitter page, at ShepMatt. All right, Tigers needed the starting pitcher. They need a big bat. Alex Cobb is the starting pitcher. What's your feelings on that? Not that it solves all the problems that this team has, and they still have plenty, but it is I would guess it's a lukewarm reception by Tigers fans. When they try to convince you we've addressed an issue by signing a 37-year-old who made 3 starts last year, hasn't won more than 9 games in a long time, and is a guy who's played on a number of different teams. Tampa, he was really good. San Francisco, Cleveland, the Angels, whatever, okay? Wherever you want to look. What does that do for you?
Nothing.
Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. Text the program, Sports Radio, to 21,000. This is, not to say I told you so, but when we were talking about certain players on who this team is going to go after, and all these people were on social media suggesting, let's go get Jack Flaherty. Let's go sign Alex Bregman. Let's go sign, next big name, whoever you want to plug in there. I said to you, you're going to have to pump the brakes. If that's what your expectation is, you're going to be really disappointed because they're not going to do that. What they're going to do is they're going to go out and they're going to be fiscally, air quotes, responsible. They're going to get a guy similar to what they did a year ago with Flaherty and Maeda. And they're going to go look for a player that they can get on a team-friendly contract, whether it be free agency or trade-wise. Now, maybe, just maybe, they're still in the market for Nolan Arenado. There's no way Nolan Arenado goes back to St. Louis. I'm sorry. Not after the stuff that their front office has said.
He's out.
That they're trying to trade him. So as a 33-year-old and a guy whose numbers are down offensively. Defensively, he's still a special player. How far can you go with a 33-year-old third baseman who has played as many games, fielded as many grounders as he has? I don't know. I think he's one of the finest defensive third basemen I have ever seen. He's not Brooks Robinson. I don't think he's probably better than Mike Schmidt. There are some great third basemen for me as a kid growing up. Nolan Arenado, Matt Chapman are probably the state-of-the-art third baseman these days. If the Tigers were involved in those conversations, does it make you excited? Not necessarily for me. Okay, even though I like him, I don't think that's exactly what this team needs. If you said they were involved in a conversation regarding Alec Baum for Philadelphia, that would probably excite me a little bit more. Probably do more because of age, and I think the power might be there for this team, even though he didn't show a ton of it a year ago. Arenado's got some power. It's not massive power, right? It's not Mike Schmidt power. It's not George Brett power, but it's power. And it would serve a need, of a more stable power bat from the right side, everyday player, which I think is important. I'm sure you've read Colt Keith. They've asked Colt Keith and Justin Henry Malloy to take some grounders at first. That should be an indicator for you. All of those of you who are out there, let's go get Christian Walker. Let's go get Pete Alonso. Probably more people say Pete Alonso than Christian Walker. Christian Walker's great power. Alonso obviously has great power. But you're not getting – I don't think you're getting Pete Alonso. I never believed that. I mean, the Mets have actually said we want him back. Even after spending $400 or $765 million on a 15-year deal for Juan Soto. They're not done. They're still going out there. They get after it, right? They're going to spend some money. I don't expect the Tigers to spend $765 million, okay? And I don't think you should either. But you would hope, after doing what they did a year ago, that they would be able to go out there and find some type of stabilizing force that these younger players can turn around and look and say, that guy is going to help us today. Instead of, when I show up, let me see if I'm in the lineup or not. We want a guy who's actually going to be in that lineup on a regular basis. Maybe, just maybe, Hassan Kim could be that guy. Of course, he's hurt, wouldn't start the year at full throttle. But maybe that's the reason they're having Colt Keith take some grounders at first base. Who knows? Maybe Justin Henry Malloy, and I told you this a year ago, bringing him up, I said, look, offensively, good eye. Let's hope he can deliver some pop. He's not a good defensive player. And what kills me about everything in these Tigers discussions is that when you're trying your best to reach a certain level of steady force in a division or a league, while you're growing your team, what do you rely on? You rely on pitching and defense. I think it's Andy Dirks who told us that during the Tigers' huge playoff push. The thing that you can do when you're a team that is unproven and a team that is young and hasn't been there before is if you can get the pitching and you can get the defense, you can contend, you can compete. Well, defensively, Parker Meadows is really good in center field. Matt Vierling is pretty good in right field. I think Riley Green's a solid left fielder. Your third base was lackluster. Your shortstop was terrible. Your second base was Your first base was average. Okay? Torkelson was better defensively when he came back up. Your catching was pretty solid. And Scott Harris has come out and said, we're good. We feel good with our catching. Jake Rogers and Dylan Dingler. What I think he needs to say is we feel good with our catching defensively, because offensively, you're not getting much there, at least as far as I'm concerned. Where's the rest of your defense? Your infield defense is not very good. So if you're looking from a defensive standpoint and you want a guy like Nolan Arenado, I get it. You greatly improve the left side of your defense. He doesn't just help third base. He helps your shortstop too. Okay, because he's going to cut balls off there. His range from his right to his left is still top notch. He's going to help your pitching a great deal. That would not be a trade just for a guy who's got right-handed pop or a little bit of pop. I would worry about it from a financial standpoint and from an age standpoint. But if that was a move that the Tigers made, I would applaud it. It's not something I would do, but I would applaud it because of the factors that we just brought up. This team defensively is not very good on the infield. I would love I think it's another reason they want to bring up. They're poking around with Hassan Kim. He could play shortstop for you. He could play second base for you, and he's solid defensively. That shores some things up. That gets you there. If you're not going to outscore teams, we've seen it right now in other sports, in football. Let's outscore you. In basketball, Memphis, let's outscore you, right? I don't know if it always works. If it can't work for a Tigers team like this, then what you can do is you can solidify your pitching and help your team's defense. And that's what those moves would be. So when you look at it from an offensive perspective, and I get it, that's where people go because this team struggles to score some runs at times. And we feel like, and I've said this for 2 years, 3 years, this team needs some pop in the middle of its order. But defensively, on the infield, if that infield could be as good defensively as the outfield was, suddenly that team becomes incrementally better. Maybe not offensively. And maybe it comes in the form of some younger players developing a little bit better. Maybe the game is slowed down a little bit for Colt Keith. Maybe he becomes a little bit more of a power hitter. Maybe the power is uncorked for a guy like Parker Meadows. Maybe Matt Vierling, who found his power last year, ups that a little bit. Riley Green ups that a little bit. Spencer Torkelson comes back. You're asking an awful lot from a lot of different players offensively. But at least with that move, defensively, you would become much, much better at third base. Phone number is 866-838-4843. The text line is Sports Radio to 21,000. And, of course, you can watch us live on a number of different opportunities with YouTube and Facebook and X as well, or Twitter, whatever it may be. When we come back here on X's and Bros, and we're with you Monday through Friday, 6 until 9, all kinds of news on that front from a baseball perspective, and you wish the Tigers were involved in something like that. Instead, it's the constant different names, the consistent names that we continuously hear. And there's a lot of things that are being described about one team in the NFL and what this former Super Bowl champ says about this team and why they can be Super Bowl champions this year. I think he helps describe the Lions as well. We'll get to all that and more coming up as we roll on a Tuesday morning on X's and Bros.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey. Now, Josh
All right, back with you on X's and Bros. I'd mentioned the success of one Jamar Chase last night that helped my fantasy football team reach the playoffs. I find out this morning from my son. I thought I leapfrogged my son. I didn't, but I did make the playoffs. I play my son's girlfriend with the winner to get my nephew. And then my son plays my other son's girlfriend with the winner to get a battle between two sons. Very interesting. And speaking of football, I saw this from True Media on social media yesterday. I was stunned at this. All right. Which team do you think has gained the most yards in the National Football League this year from pass interference calls?
Shep, I just saw this on my timeline during that last break. It's the Vikings, isn't it?
It's Minnesota, 273, followed by the Rams at 228 and Kansas City at 194. Now, I know exactly what happens. As soon as Trent and others read that, they roll their eyes at Kansas City. All right. And I'm not a defender of the Chiefs by any stretch. Okay. And I think Detroit obviously gets jobbed a little bit, and I'll explain here in a moment. So bear with me. The bottom three are San Francisco, 43 yards gained from pass interference calls. Philadelphia, 12. And Detroit, 5. In other words, the Lions have had the fewest amount of yards gained courtesy of pass interference calls. Now, keep this in mind. The Lions have committed more pass interferences, 17, than any other team in the NFL this year. How many times have they got the beneficiary of a pass interference call? The answer to that is 1. That seems odd, right? It seems borderline unfair.
Seems really odd.
Now, I want you to keep this in mind. Kansas City throws the ball as much as just about anybody. They are 7th in the league in pass attempts. This is a factor now, okay? Moving forward, the more you throw it, the more likelihood is you're going to get pass interference. Detroit has a great run defense. Are teams running against them? No. Teams are going to throw against them. Obviously, when you lose your entire defensive line, and we've gone through it before, from Hutchinson to Davenport. Okay, DJ Reader is going to be back this week. That's a good sign. But you understand where I'm going with this, right? More teams are going to throw against Detroit than they are going to run against Detroit. Detroit is going to run the ball as much as just about anybody in football. Why not? They have one of the best running games in all of football, right? Okay. So when you look at pass attempts, the Lions have the 10th fewest pass attempts in the league. This is not the Matthew Stafford era where you got to lead the league in completions and attempts in order for you to get recognized and eventually win 4 games. Because that's what happened in 2012. Led the league in both those categories. They went 4-12. You want to win football games. Many people feel, including yours truly, you have to have balance. The Lions have great balance. They're going to run the ball because they got big fellas up front who blow their nose in the huddle and want to grind it out and beat the crap out of the defense. You've got running backs. Go ahead and give them the damn nickname if you want. I don't care. All I know is when I have Gibbs and or Montgomery in the game, I feel pretty comfortable, both with the passing and running game. My problem with this is, and this alludes to primarily one player and one player alone. Minnesota has attempted fewer passes than the Lions. So why do you think the Minnesota Vikings get the most yardage from pass interference calls for them at 273 yards? Why is that? It's number 18. It's Justin Jefferson. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve it. I'm saying one guy can make that big of a difference.
Sometimes you have to interfere with him. That's the only way you're going to stop him, right?
Well, that's what some people would assume. Either that or he gets the wink, wink, the beneficiary of many flags.
The star treatment.
Look,
yeah.
Look, the star treatment. Why is it? I'm not whining here. Okay. I'm just asking. Why is it that Amon-Ra St. Brown, who wasn't all pro a year ago, how come he's not getting the beneficiary of that? Jared Goff throws it. Very accurate passer. Lions don't throw it as obviously as much as some teams, but they throw it more than Minnesota.
I do think that
is the best team in the NFL, and yet they're doing it on their own, if you will. Kansas City gets the beneficiary of some calls, and I know you're going, oh, come on, Patrick Mahomes. Listen, they don't have a running game. All right. They had to bring Kareem Hunt off the street, for crying out loud. They just got Isaac Pacheco back. And hopefully they incorporate him a little bit more because he played primarily from a snap standpoint, maybe half the game last week. Let's hope he plays a little bit more this week since he's my fantasy football running back, but I digress. I think when you're forced to throw the football as much as Kansas, they're one-dimensional. They're a passing football team. All right. Detroit doesn't have to worry about that. Detroit is a little bit more balanced. We should feel good about that. And yet, it's something like this that kind of ticks us off. And I'm wondering how people feel about it. I thought it was a very telling statistic given by True Media about the number of times Detroit has been the beneficiary of that and how many times they've been flagged. I would also remind you that Terrion Arnold has been flagged for more PIs than anybody else, and he is a rookie cornerback. Now, Philadelphia's got a rookie cornerback too, but obviously that's not the case for the Eagles. I think Terrion Arnold's going to be fine.
He's got 7 of the 17, by the way. 7.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be the guy who you look back at and you go, man, why did we spend a draft pick on Terry Fair, Bryant Westbrook, or
Jeff Okudah?
Right? Yeah, Jeff Okudah is your age, but I mean, even way back when, Detroit couldn't identify. Remember, Darius Slay was a second-round pick. He got burned quite a bit. The defensive secondary calls and formations and the way they handled their defense back then was more zone. Why they didn't go more to man-to-man earlier in Darius Slay or even recognize that at the start, turns out to be he's one of the best cornerbacks of his era. And that's because he's primarily man. That's what he was used to when he came out of college, and that's where he thrived first and foremost. And he was a really good player in Detroit, and if it weren't for the stupidity of Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, who knows if he would still be a Detroit Lion. But again, we get off topic just a little bit. But Philadelphia's got a couple of rookie cornerbacks, and they're really good. The kid from Toledo and the kid from Iowa, Cooper DeJean at the end. So the question is, Quinyon Johnson and Cooper DeJean, could you blame it all on one guy? Well, you can't blame it all on one guy. He's going to grow into it. I think he's going to be just fine as a cornerback. But those numbers are pretty telling. If you want to use the argument that Detroit just doesn't throw it that much because they've got better balance, so on and so forth, I use Minnesota as the example. And it's Justin Jefferson and primarily Justin Jefferson. I suppose Jordan Addison gets some. Maybe TJ Hawkinson now gets a little bit. I don't know. But I would guess it's more about Justin Jefferson. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I know he's not going downfield quite as often, but he's still involved. He's still got a ton of catches. He's third in the National Football League, I believe, in receptions. You're trying to tell me that this is the kind of thing that happens to superstars. This is what oftentimes I'm told. This is what happens with superstars. When you get a superstar in there, blah, 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 blah. Well, hold on a second, man. At what point do we recognize that Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was a Pro Bowler a year ago, and I'm sorry, he's fourth in receptions. And if you look at targets, he's not necessarily up there with some of the big names, but he's still top 15. You're trying to tell me that he's not getting interfered with more than what the Lions have been the beneficiary of? I find that hard to believe. Phone number on the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. You can text the show, Sports Radio, to 21,000 on a Tuesday morning throughout the great state of Michigan.
Saturday, December 28th at Soaring Eagle Casino.
Certain videos make you stop. This one does. When you see Eddie Van Halen playing the guitar. Welcome back, X's and Bros, Monday through Friday, 6 until 9. Here's what we strive for. We strive for good sports content. And on occasion, we will deviate with some music once in a while and some things that happen in our everyday lives. But overall, we try to give you some good sports content that's something that you can kind of sink your teeth into. And every time we approach the show, I think of the things that you and your friends may be talking about. Now, Trent's younger than I am, and our producer has a lot of friends who sometimes listen to the show, my hope, and are getting together, for the fantasy football draft, or they're getting ready for, opening day or a big game or whatever it may be. And we try to bring up information and topics that we think they might be talking about. Hey, what'd you think about Alex Cobb signing with the Tigers? 37-year-old, and I heard this morning on X's and Bros, boo, boo, boo. That's kind of how we approach it. So we thought, when you look at the pass interference calls, I think that's some interesting information. The other thing I wanted to bring up regarding football involves a past Super Bowl champion and some of the things he said about his team and why he thinks they can win it all this year. And as he was describing his team, I couldn't help but think of the Lions, not because I'm a Lions fan, not because we're in the state of Michigan, but because these are the characteristics it takes to be successful. And you could say that, I guess, in life too, not just in sports or in football in general. You're looking for traits that say, that's what a champion looks like. This is how you win on a regular basis. This is how you win in the postseason. This is how you elevate one another. So we'll get to that coming up. First, let's get to the text line. You can always text the show, Sports Radio, to 21,000, or you can call us on the Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843, Monday through Friday, 6 until 9 here on X's and Bros. Who do we get first via text?
We've got a 616 area code, which means it's Grand Rapids, and they're fired up because they say Division II football update. It's on to the NCAA semifinals for the Ferris State Bulldogs as they crunch defending champion Harding 41-7 last Saturday. Ferris moves on to host Slippery Rock this weekend. One more win sends Ferris to the national championship game the following weekend.
Good for them. I mean, Tony Anise has done just an amazing job there at Ferris State. He is such a good football coach. I mean, offensively, especially. Good for them. Rooting for him for sure. We'll do our best to get Tony Anise back on and preview what we hope will be a national championship game for Ferris State. You talk about consistency. He has delivered consistency. We're really lucky in this state. And I'll raise my hand here. There are too many times we veer shows toward the top 4 major league teams or the professional teams, Lions, Tigers, Red Wings, Pistons, and then the 2 big schools, Michigan and Michigan State. At times, I think we've done a pretty good job of spreading the love around to Grand Valley, Ferris State as well. More needs to be done, admittedly so. More needs to be done for the mid-major schools and the other programs. I mean, there's Michigan State hockey earlier this year was number 1 in the country. I mean, you should bring on Adam Nightingale and talk about it. They deserve it, okay? The thing that I fear most about the way college sports is going is that we turn into a country of strictly football and basketball players. Moms and dads go, you know what? How are you going to get a scholarship? How are you going to get some money? Because the landscape of college sports is going to change. It's going to change drastically. All right. I'm not saying everybody's going to become club teams and pay to play. It's going to change. All right. When you have X amount of dollars and you're going to take most of those dollars and steer it toward 2 programs that make money. From a business standpoint, it makes sense. Are you going to keep throwing money at a certain side of your business that isn't making any money? No, you're not going to do that. But when you have these kids out there busting it on a regular basis, we'll use Michigan State hockey as an example. They deserve some recognition. Ferris State, Grand Valley State, you could talk about some other parts of the state as well on some of their athletic programs. They deserve some recognition. And Ferris State doesn't get nearly enough. They get some on the west side of the state, and rightfully so. But there's not enough people here in Metro Detroit and the big newspapers and the big blogs and so on and so forth that are paying attention to it. And we're guilty of it. Yeah, we are. We should be pushing Ferris State to bring on a player, bring on coaches, and talk more about it. We're gonna do everything we can to do just that. Next text. Go ahead.
This one's a bit longer, so bear with me, but I think there's some good stuff
Longer
here.
than the last one?
Yeah. It says, to me, it looks like the Tigers are already grooming Colt Keith for first base to make room for Hao-Yu Lee at second base. They're the 2-rated infield right now in the minors. No way to Alec Boehm. He is Spencer Torkelson. Want to trade them for each other? Fine. Maybe a change could help both players. Put Boehm at third, Colt at first, Lee at second, and that helps the defense a ton.
All right. Yeah, that is a lot to unpack there. First of all, Colt Keith, who handles the baseball outside of the pitcher? Let's say everyday player. Who handles the baseball the most?
Who handles the base? Yeah, the catcher. Okay. Yeah, for sure.
You know who's second?
Pitcher.
It's the first baseman. I said outside of pitcher.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So it's the first baseman. Colt Keith has never played there before. I'm not going to throw a guy in there who has never played there and give him duties every single day. You don't want a guy like Alec Boehm. Okay. I'm not pushing that on you. I'm just telling you, here's a guy who is 28 years old. All right. He was an all-star last year. He hit 280. His rookie year, he hit 338, then 247, 280, 274, 280. All right. Slugs about 450. All right. Has got a little pop from the left side and stabilizes your third base spot. You said you don't want both those guys in the and I think with Alec Boehm, it was his offensive problems a year ago when he was benched in the playoffs. So all kinds of issues there. But this is a guy who, defensively is still a pretty damn good player. Early on in his career, he made way too many errors, but last year made one error, I believe. Let me think about this for a second. Let me look this up here. How many? Do
you think he would necessarily be a defensive?
He played a little bit of first base too. At third base, yeah, he made 14 errors a year ago. So it's a little much for most people. You look at defensive run saves, and that's where you have to first and foremost take dead aim at a defensive player. So I want to look at defensive run saves with Alec Boehm. He has played, like I said, just a little bit of first base. At what point do you give up on players? Has always been my question to people. Are you going to give up on them at age 28? A guy just hit 280, was an all-star, and you're going to say, sorry, no way, don't want him. But you want who at third base? Chase Young, who is unproven? You're afraid you got weakness offensively at both Boehm and Torkelson, meaning that you've obviously given up on Torkelson. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just it's pretty quick to decide that I'm done with somebody. It takes some time. Now, I would say this year for Torkelson would be the vital year for me when it comes to him, because I have a little bit of patience for some of the young players. We've got to get to a break. We'll pick it up on the other end, and we'll also get more texts coming your way on X's and BrO's. Stay with us.
Enjoy huge savings, thoughtful gifts.
All right, back with you on X's and Bros here on a Tuesday morning. We'll get to some more of the text. Just a quick follow-up on, all the things that we were talking about regarding the Tigers. We were up against the break, so we can really dive into it. Some people wouldn't want a guy like Alec Boehm. Alec Boehm was a 3-WAR player a year ago, okay? And on a team that doesn't have very many high WAR players. And you can roll your eyes at the statistic, but it's important, Guys who are 3-WAR players are oftentimes all-star players. He's not that for his career. He's a 3-8 WAR player for his career. He's 28, young still. I thought you'd see more pop. I thought you'd see more homers out of his bat when he came out of Wichita State. He's a guy who I think you could be part of building around. I would take a 3-WAR player at third base, especially on this team, who could deliver you 15 to 20 home runs. I'd probably like a little bit more, especially at that position. What numbers are most important to you? So Trent and I were just talking, and then the texter had mentioned, Spencer Torkelson. Anytime you talk about the Tigers, eventually it's going to lead to Torkelson. Pistons, it leads to Ivy. With the Tigers, it leads to Torkelson. And I'll be the first to admit, I like him a lot. First of all, I think he's a great dude, but that's neither here nor there. I want somebody who's going to produce. I don't think you should be in the major leagues if you're hitting 200 with a high strikeout rate. Just don't believe it. But what is it you're looking for, and how quickly are you judging people? This dude has been in the league for 3 years. Now, I want you to keep in mind, first of all, there's nobody else you would have spent your first overall pick on than Spencer Torkelson. And don't tell me you would have, because first of all, you probably can't even name somebody else from the draft class. All right? That's number one. Number two, the only other player you thought about that was even in that discussion was Austin Martin. You don't even know where he plays right now. You may not even know where he played then. So to say, well, I wouldn't have taken him first overall is bullcrap. Thirdly, how quickly are you going to judge a player? I've already said, doesn't belong in the major leagues if you're batting 200 high strikeout rate, which is what he had a year ago, batting 212 with a high strikeout rate. You want power from him. So look at the slug first and foremost. Go ahead and look at the OPS if you want, but primarily the slug. Last year, the slug was brutal, 37.5, whatever it may be. You want to get caught up in the batting average, go right ahead. You want a guy like Ryan Mountcastle who's going to bat 280 and drive and give you 14 homers at first base. And you could possibly do that because you got Anthony Santander, you got Adley Rutschman, you've got other guys who can bring home runs with power like that. The Tigers don't have that. So there's a lot of things that goes against Spencer Torkelson. A lot of pressure being a 1-1. This team needs you to hit home runs, and you've only done it 1 year. But I would remind you, he's been in the league for 3 years. That's it. And he's been sent down twice. I get it. He was rushed at age 22, should not have been brought up. I guess that's a moot point right now because he was brought up and played, 100, 110 games or whatever. So if you'll bear with me and say, let's forget the rookie season for right now, because there's a lot of rookies who struggle. Mike Trout struggled. Barry Bonds struggled. I'm not comparing the two. I'm just giving you two examples, two guys who in their rookie campaigns who struggled. So let's just say you can bear with me through the rookie season. Now look at the last 2 years. 1 year, 31 and 94. 31 homers, 94 runs batted in. I don't care about the batting average. Yes, he strikes out too much. There's a lot of guys who punch out a lot, okay? Probably way too much. It happens, especially in today's baseball. I don't like it, but it happens, all right? Paul Goldschmidt struck out almost 200 times last year. I'm just using first baseman as an example. 31 and 94. Last year, awful season. Should have been sent down, was sent down. Not sure how much better he got, came back, ended up with 10 homers, and that's it. Which year are you going to judge it on? What have you done for me lately is oftentimes used in life and in sports. And that's where people are going. They're saying, what have you done for me lately? I saw last year. I didn't like it. I'm done with it. Okay. That's cool. You want to convert a second baseman or an outfielder who has played third, has played right, went back to third, then to left, and can't play any of them defensively. Not good enough. Now you're going to say, let's throw him at first base, who handles the ball the second most of any player on the team. Or you want a second baseman who got steadily a little bit better, not considerably better, a little bit better, and you're going to want to make him your first baseman when he's never played there before. Okay, that's cool. I wouldn't do that, but that's your choice. You're doing it because you want to, lack of a better phrase, give up on a 3-year pro. You've already decided after 3 years, he's not good enough. Last year, no. The year before, yes. If he gave you those numbers on a regular basis, 31 and 94, you would take it. That's what's expected. I'm not giving up on players after 3 years. My hope is that whatever you do in life, 3 years in, you are great at it. And I doubt that you are. That's where I stand on that stuff.
Could I argue there's a difference between giving up and not having confidence? Because that's where I'm at. I'm not necessarily giving up on him. I just don't think he's going to be the player from 2 years ago. I think he's going to be the player from last year.
Based on what?
Based on last year.
So going into last season, you expected
I expected him to, again, I know that batting average isn't what you look for with him because he's a power hitter, but you can't hit 219. 2 years ago, he hit 235.
No, I asked you what you expected.
What I expected was that.
If all you're doing is taking the previous year.
Yes.
Okay, and you said you don't have confidence because of what you saw last year. What I said
because he declined last year.
Then based on that, going into last year, you expected
at least linear
90, right?
At least linear production, yeah.
Okay. All right. So you are basically whatever I see the year before is what I expect the next year.
With a young player, yes, I would at least expect what you did the year before. Yeah, I'd expect the same or better.
Okay. And
you're looking for progression.
They no longer become young in your mind.
Right around now, 4 or 5 years. So this is year 4. So this is a make or break year. I don't have the confidence that he's going to get back to the player he was 2 years ago. I think he'll be more like the player he was last year, which was okay, but by his standards, not great. He was sent down for much of the year.
Okay. Yeah.
That's me. That doesn't mean I'm giving up on him. I just don't think he's going to be great.
What are the numbers you expect from him?
2 years ago, how many RBIs do you have?
91.
That's if he hits 235 with 91 RBIs this upcoming season, I'll stay in on him.
Okay.
If he again hits 203 like he did 3 years ago or 219 like he did last year and gets sent down at any point because he's not cutting it.
I don't think getting sent down should the be all end all.
No, it's just an indicator that he's.
I mean, there are guys like Max Scherzer got sent down for crying out loud.
Yeah, I get it.
Pete Alonso this past year, who everybody at the Tigers won, hit 240, had 30 homers, and 88 RBIs. You'd be okay with that. Slugged 450, 460, which Torkelson slugged 450 2 years ago. You'd be okay with that, right? I'm trying to get the barometer here.
It's better production from the position. Yeah.
That wasn't the question. I know it's better production from the position. That's obvious. I'm asking you would take that, right? You said about 235.
Yep.
30 homers, 90 RBIs. Alonso didn't get there on the homers and the RBIs, but he got there on the batting average. You like the batting average. I want the slug. All right? I want the slug more than anything. I want the homers, the RBIs, and the slug. You can take your batting average. If he gives me 35 bombs, 95 RBIs, slugs 460, and bats 220, you think I give a crap? You think I care that he reaches 230? Honestly? Hell no. Because this team doesn't have that. This team doesn't have anything close to that. Nobody on this team can deliver that from a home. Maybe Kerry Carpenter. Maybe Kerry Carpenter could give you that. There's nobody else on this team, I believe, that is capable of 35 bombs, 95 ribbies, and slugging 460. Tell me who else can do that. I love Riley Green. I don't think he's going to hit over 30 homers. I love Kerry Carpenter. Is he going to play enough to drive in 95 runs? Tell me who else is going to do that for you. And if you say Jake Rogers, we're done.
No, it's
okay.
It's not.
Matt Vierling was a 3-WAR player a year ago. He had 16 homers. I like him a lot. He is not capable of those types of numbers. So I ask you again, who else is capable on this team of delivering those numbers other than him? You don't have a name because there isn't a name. And you don't keep a guy just based on, well, this is what he can deliver. But you do give him a little bit of runway because he's only been in the league for 3 flipping years. And again, as I said before, if you give me a little leeway on the rookie, since he was 22, brought up way too early and missed most of his last year at Arizona State and all of the year with the COVID year, which not enough people take into consideration. And right now people are going, well, you're making excuses. It's not an excuse. It's an explanation. And it's a fair one. Because while you and I during COVID were sitting on our ass on the couch, these guys could have been getting valuable experience either at the minor league or the major league level. And for them specifically, the minor league level. But that's conveniently forgotten. So that's why I say, forget the rookie year for a second. I look at it like he's really been in the league for 2 years. And 1 year was good and 1 year was bad. And you chose to look at the bad. That's fine because it's the most recent. Let's go to the phone lines. The Meyer hotline, 866-838-4843. Who's up?
It's Freddie with some Tigers thoughts.
Freddie, you're the only guy who calls. What's up?
Hi, Shep. Hope you don't mind that. And I worked my butt off during COVID. I worked my butt off during COVID. Listen, I sent that text, and I hate, I'm sending less and less texts and calling you more because the texts don't make sense. There's no, there's no conversation because you take it the wrong way, I take it the wrong way. I'm not saying give up on Torkelson. That wasn't my point. The point was you brought up trade for Baum, and I've heard that name as well. What I was saying is, to me, they're the same player. So I don't want Baum at third and Torkelson at first base. So my point was, I'm not the one saying put Colt at first base. The Tigers are saying, the Tigers have made it public. Hey, we're gonna try him out a little bit at first base.
Yeah,
what that means, I don't know.
Yeah, I said that. I said that with Cole
read
Keith
that yesterday.
and Justin Henry Malloy. They're not the same player, though. Bohm and Torkelson are not the same player. Bohm was a 3-point. Okay, he was a 3-WAR player. He hits for a higher average. He hits for less home runs. Hell, he slugged last year at 450. Would you take that among third basemen? That's top 10 among major league third basemen.
Why is Dave Dombrowski trying to trade him then? That would be my question, number one. And two, to me they're the same player because I don't look at the WAR. Okay, I'm an old school guy. I don't look at the WAR. Spencer Torkelson, if the way I look at Spencer Torkelson is, if I had to judge him, I would judge him on the last 2 years, not the last year. What he hit 31 home runs when the team stunk. He hit 10 home runs when the team was really good. And what did he do for me when the team was really good and the pressure was on? That's how I would look at a player.
Oh.
When the pressure is on, how do they do?
So you think the 31 homers don't mean anything because the team wasn't very good?
I didn't say it didn't mean anything.
Wait a minute. You said come on. The way you said it, Freddie. Let's be honest here, okay? Don't beat around the bush. You didn't think it meant as much because they weren't really good, and this year they were really good. That's exactly what you said. So you think that to a certain extent, you think they're almost empty. Give me something. So in other words, Calvin Johnson's almost 2,000 yards didn't mean crap because the Lions went 4-12 in 2012, right? It didn't mean anything. What's the point?
No, it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything for the team. No,
Oh,
absolutely not.
I see. Yeah. Tell that to
Yeah,
Calvin Johnson.
yeah.
Okay. Tell that to Calvin Johnson that
I,
it
I,
didn't
I,
mean
I,
anything.
I well,
Tell that something to Matthew
well,
Stafford because it didn't mean anything.
I told
By the
Herman.
way,
I
when you
told
say
Herman Moore he's a
and when
better wide receiver.
I don't. Oh, that's fine. But and you know what? You would be wrong there. But if you want to sit there and you want to say that these don't have as much meaning, or when the pressure is on, you open your doors every day in your restaurant. That's pressure because you've got to sell. Don't tell any athlete at the professional level that there isn't pressure until it gets to playoff time. They have to perform, many of them, for their contracts on a pretty regular basis, for their roster spots on a regular basis. I know guys who lasted 7-8 years in the NFL needed to make that team and play every single week. There was pressure for them, not just on Sundays. So I think it's kind of insulting when people say, oh, only when the pressure was on. There's pressure just about every time you come up to the plate when it comes to baseball.
I know, but that's not me taking a shot at him or saying give up on him. I'm saying how I would judge him. See, you have your mindset that you don't want to give up on him, and I'm not saying give up on him. This is just my opinion. You brought up Baum. I said I don't want Baum at third and Spencer at third. If they're not going to sign a big name, then trade for the two. Give me Baum at third. Put Colt at first. And give me Lee at second, and the defense, I think, gets a lot better. Let's start there. That's all I said. I didn't say give up on anybody. I just don't want Baum at third and Spencer at first, because to me, they're the same player, and Colt wasn't great at second base, so your defense doesn't get better. Let's start somewhere, and I just thought, let's start with defense, and maybe the hitting will follow. That's all it was. It's not about giving up on anybody. It's you just took it the whole wrong way.
Well, hold on a second. If you're saying trade for Bohm and move Keith to first, you are giving up on Torkelson, are you not?
What I'm saying is I don't want Baum if Spencer is playing at first base.
I understand that. I've got that clear. All I'm asking you is if you're basically saying one or the other. You don't want to trade for Alec Bohm if you're going to keep Torkelson, when you don't know that, because you got to see what Torkelson's going to do in spring training. So I don't know how you could do one without the other like you would like. I don't think that's possible.
Then if they're not going to do anything, leave Spencer at first and get me a third baseman, and let's see what Spencer does in the next year and a half.
You want a different third baseman. I see what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, if they keep Spencer, yes, absolutely. I want a veteran third baseman there that's going to play. Not just split with Jung, but it's going to play a lot. And Jung can just maybe start off in the minors again. You know, they need a veteran third baseman. They do.
Fair enough. Okay, so, thank you, Freddie.
Anyway,
we got to hit a break. Yeah, I appreciate it as always. Phone number is 866-838-4843. Top of the hour. We've got the final results from the poll question yesterday. We'll give you that right after this.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey. Now, Josh
facts and come back and see me. Get some facts and come back and see me. Don't throw out salaries or other things. Get some facts and come back and see me. You can't handle the truth.
I told our players, you need to be more like a dog. We don't need a bunch of cats in here. Yeah, looking in the mirror. Do I look good? I got my extra bands on. I got my other shoes on. Be a dog. We don't need no meows. We don't need no cats. We need more dogs.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
We weren't good. There's no sense asking me things about the game. I'm telling you, we laid an egg, so I'm not going to break it down for you. He sucked. He sucked. We laid an egg. That's all I have to say, guys. Sorry, I'm not going to break it down for you. Nothing went well for us. It's on us. We have to figure it out, and we will.
It's showtime. Final hour of the program. Glad you're with us. Red Wings a big win last night, 6-5 in a shootout win in Buffalo to snap a 5-game slide. Dylan Larkin had a couple of assists and had the game winner in that shootout. Lucas Raymond had a goal and an assist. Mo Sider had a goal and an assist. JT Comfort also had a couple of helpers, and Andrew Kopp had 2 goals, and Detroit a 6-5 winner. Much needed. Still, long way to go, but you take the wins when you can get them. Tigers have reportedly signed 37-year-old right-hander Alex Cobb, the 13-year vet, started 3 games for Cleveland last year, went 2-1, had a hip and a shoulder problem. He's had Tommy John surgery in the past, but in fairness to the Tigers, 2 straight years, 2022 and 2023, he started 28 games. He was an all-star in 2023 for them. He's not known as a high win total guy, known as a ground ball pitcher. They feel like they could get the strikeouts back to a certain extent on where they hope it would be. He's not a power guy. He's going to be a back end of your rotation guy, I believe. I think he's going to be, if you're looking at Tarek Skubal and Reese Olson, and maybe a guy like, hopefully Casey Mize responds and returns a little bit to what you hope. Jackson Jobe comes up. Again, I would just caution people, Jackson Jobe, if he starts at the major league level, and I sure hope he's ready to do that, he's not throwing 150 innings. They're not going deep into it. They're going to monitor his innings very, very carefully because that's the way teams are today with pitchers. I don't like it. I don't think a lot of you like it either, but that's just the way things operate in today's baseball. Week 14 in the NFL closes out with the Bengals beating the Dallas Cowboys 27-20. Last night during the broadcast, I think it was Joe Buck, it might have been Troy Aikman, I forget which one, said, these two teams still play really hard for their coaches. And that's admirable. And maybe that's right. I mean, we've seen Dallas get trucked more than once. I don't know if that's necessarily the case. Mike McCarthy, especially when you have Micah Parsons saying what he said about Mike McCarthy. But when I see Mike McCarthy on the sidelines, I just think, how much does he have his resume updated, or does he need it? Probably an offensive coordinator if he doesn't retire somewhere. I was surprised to hear the number of wins from Mike McCarthy equals that of Bill Parcells last night. That's what they said during the broadcast. Anyway, Joe Burrow throws for 369 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jamar Chase had 14 rocks, 177 yards and 2 touchdowns. Both teams with 5 wins this year. We mentioned earlier this year in the 6 o'clock hour, earlier in the show, in the 6 o'clock hour, how Joe Burrow is not in the MVP conversation. Just blows your mind. 33 touchdowns, 6 picks. That's it. Leads the league in yards and touchdowns. Is top 10 in completion percentage. It's all about wins, and they don't have it. Pistons are off until Thursday when they visit Boston. Michigan and Michigan State into the top 25 in basketball, and rightfully so. Michigan at 14, MSU at 21. Vlad Golden, Michigan's center, has been named Big Ten Player of the Week, averaging 22 points and 8 rebounds. And Central Michigan has themselves a new head football coach. Matt Drinkle, the offensive line coach for Army, is now the guy in charge in Mount Pleasant. Our poll question for the day is, who is more to blame for the Red Wings struggles? Is it their head coach, Derek Lalonde? Is it their general manager, Steve Yzerman? Or is it the players? You can vote as often as you like at XB Mornings or at Shep Matt, and we'll give you the results tomorrow in the 8 o'clock hour. I know we've got another text I want to get to. We've got to get to the final results from yesterday's poll question, and we've got to get to our daily wager. Let's take the text first, because anytime you text, we believe we got to get it on there as quickly as possible. Same thing when you call. So you can text the show, Sports Radio, to 21,000. What's the last text we have, or do we have more than one?
We've got one right now, and it asks, who's the 1 seed if the Lions and Eagles have the same record at the end of the year? And the answer to that, I believe, is the Lions.
The Lions, yes.
If the Lions go 3-1 in this final 4 games, they are the 1 seed automatically. They win their division, and they're the 1 seed automatically if they go 3-1 the rest of the way.
We do this on a pretty regular basis. Toughest game left. You've got home against Buffalo, on the road at Chicago, on the road at San Francisco, and home against Minnesota. Hard to believe that a team at 12-1, you feel like there are certain games that are almost must-wins. What would be the hardest game, you believe, left on their schedule?
I think it's this Sunday against the Bills, and I think if you win that one, I think it's tough to see a world where the Lions don't win this division and get the 1 seed. Because if you win that one, then you got to go 2-1 the rest of the way. You can still afford a loss after the Bills game. I think this Bills game...
You can't afford the loss to Minnesota at home, and Minnesota wins out.
No, the Lions still own the tiebreaker with Minnesota. Because
because of the division record.
Yes. I saw. I don't know how. I don't know all the little tiebreakers and everything. All I saw was if the Lions go 3-1, it really doesn't even matter who they lose to. If they go 3-1 the rest of the way, they're going to win this division and be the 1 seed.
If they go 3-1 the rest of the way, even if they happen to lose to Minnesota.
Yes, there's a chart going around on social media. You'll probably see it. It's got all the possible scenarios.
To the Lions and the Rams, and if the
you beat the Rams, common opponent, because you would then split with the Vikings. And there's something in there about the Lions beat the Rams.
The Vikings, you have the same divisional record, and then you go to common opponent?
I guess so. What it is? Yes, and the Lions have beaten the Rams.
Okay.
It's confusing. All I know,
No, I was just wondering, because if the Lions happen to lose to San Francisco, okay, well, I guess that wouldn't matter, because as long as they beat the Vikings at the end, right, is what you're saying.
Yes.
So doesn't that make the Vikings game the most important?
No, I still think it's the Bills game, because if the Lions lose this Bills game, they would then have to win out to ensure the 1 seed in the division, and it puts more pressure on you. I think this Sunday is easily the biggest game left on the schedule. That's just me.
Yeah. I'm not saying you're wrong. You said easily. And I'm wondering about that. If they lose, you say they got to win out. If they win, they still have to win 2 more games, no matter what.
Yes, but I think this is the toughest game left. Is all I'm saying.
So there you go. You think it's the toughest game, right? It's not the most important game, but it's the toughest game. Is that fair?
Sure.
Because Buffalo's really good, right?
I mean, Josh Allen, I think with the 6 touchdowns, he jumped in front for MVP, and rightfully so.
Yeah. So of the games left on the schedule, I think that's fair to say. I think Buffalo, they're really good. I'll be honest with you. I texted you last week, and I said, Buffalo looks beatable, right? When the Rams were moving up and down the field. And I think the Lions' offense is better than the Rams, and I think the Lions can move up and down the field. How are they going to stop Buffalo? That's the question I think a lot of people will have going into that game.
I think you'll see a lot of stack in the box like they did against Jordan Love. A lot of blitzing.
Do you not expect this to be a massive shootout?
Oh, I expect it to be high scoring for sure. Yeah.
Without a doubt. All right, let's get to so that was the question. The question's been answered. Let's get to the final results of our poll question. That's another question that needs to be answered. We asked you yesterday, which college football playoff team could provide the biggest upset win? Clemson, SMU, Boise State, or Indiana? I'm interested to hear what people had to say here. What's the final result there?
Very balanced voting across the board. Boise State wins with 29%, Indiana with 27%, and Clemson and SMU each get 22%. So Boise State wins, but it's tight.
What would you answer to that question?
I voted for Boise. I think with that running back, the Heisman finalist, Ashton Genty, I believe is his name, right? I think you got a player like that, you can beat anybody. You can give anyone some trouble, right?
Do you think if Penn State beats SMU, do you think they handle Penn State?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not sure any of these teams make a run, to be honest with you.
Who's got the best chance?
I don't think Clemson can beat Texas. No way. I think Boise State can beat because I think SMU and Penn State are very vulnerable. So I would agree with you. I'm not sure Indiana gets by Notre Dame, and they sure as hell I don't think can beat Georgia. All right, we'll get to the Daily Wager, brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort when we come back, and more coming up on X's and BrO's after this.
It's time to go on the court with Tim Stout. It's a new day to celebrate and be
I had neglected to mention earlier in the show our friend John Paul Morosi, who sent out a tweet. I would say, I think it was late last night, super late last night, roughly 15 hours ago or so, where the Tigers have shown interest in Paul Goldschmidt. And immediately, I said that to Trent. Trent immediately goes, that'd be cool. Which, from a name perspective, absolutely. I mean, I'd walk through every single door to go watch Paul Goldschmidt. I think I've talked to Kirk Gibson about this, and Gibby had him in Arizona. He said he is the ultimate pro, the ultimate teammate. Awesome dude. Perfect for your clubhouse. Great leader. Takes a lot for Kirk Gibson to say that, right? Here's the worry. 22 bombs. Would you take 22 homers?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I would.
Why would you take 22 homers? You just told me that Spencer Torkel's got to hit 30.
That's what I would expect from a 1-1 guy who's billed as a power hitter. That's what I expect.
Well, wait a minute. Paul Goldschmidt's a power hitter.
Yeah, but he's 37. It would be cool, is what I said.
Okay, hold on.
I don't necessarily think it'd be a great move. It'd be cool.
Hit 65 RBIs in 154 games. You take that?
I'd like more.
He's a one.
I mean, come on.
Cautiously. 1.3 WAR. You take that?
Not good.
Slug of 41.5. You take that?
Not as good as Torque.
No, not as good as Torque 2 years ago.
Right. Last year,
everybody was better than Torque last year. I'm not trying to put you in a bad spot here.
No, I got it. I got it.
I think what happens is, and I can be guilty of it too. We hear the name.
Yeah.
Like, holy cow. He's a, former MVP. A couple of years ago, he's an MVP. He's a 7-time All-Star. He's a 5-time Silver Slugger. Would you want him? Absolutely. He's going to make $26 million. How much of that would the Cardinals pay? I don't know. But that's on the books. He's got 1 year left on his contract. $26 million. They're looking for somebody who's going to sell them something. So what would that be? All right. I mean, this is what St. Louis is doing right now. St. Louis is willing to do that they don't feel like they're going anywhere with these guys. Like Freddie earlier said, I worry because why is Dave Dombrowski going to want to get rid of him? Dave Dombrowski traded you Matt Vierling too. So are you happy with that? You're never going to do business with Dave Dombrowski because you think he's going to pull the wool over your eyes? He's missed on plenty of trades. Okay. But I'm asking you, I mean, Paul Goldschmidt with the name, 1 year left, $26 million. The name of Nolan Arenado has been out there. He's got 3 years left. $32 million this year. You wouldn't be responsible for all of it because Colorado pays $5 million of it. $5 million. Yeah. In 2025, Colorado pays $5 million. Colorado plays $5 million the next year of $27 million for Arenado. And the final year is a $15 million deal in 2027, in which he will be 36. And in which many Tigers fans, I'm sure, would say, haven't we gone through this with Miguel Cabrera? And the answer to that would be, yes, you have. Yeah. So would you take a guy like Nolan Arenado for $22 million? I mean, I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but those are some of the names. St. Louis is trying to get that money off their books, bring in some of their new blood. I don't know who that new blood is. I'm not going to try to fool you with that. And the Tigers are going to be one of those teams that brings in these veterans. Like, oh my gosh, why would Philadelphia get rid of them? Why St. Louis getting rid of those guys? And does St. Louis have a more winnable division against teams like the Cubs and the Brewers? You can cause concern and pause on just about any move if you wanted to. I think this team needs a couple of established guys. Yeah. But I also think they need guys who are still going to be a threat to hit home runs. Is Paul Goldschmidt that guy? I gave you the numbers earlier this year. I said, you go home runs by ballpark, Comerica Park, 160. Not great, right? Is Nolan Arenado going to give you a lot of home runs? What do you consider a lot? It's hard to hit 25 home runs. He had 16 a year ago. Is it going to be easier to hit him at Comerica Park? Hit 26 the year before. Could he recapture what he did 3 years ago and hit 30 for you? That'd be great. Not sure that would be the case. He had played 154 games a year ago, 152 games, and he hit 16. I mean, those are the things I think about. I mean, Comerica Park, I love the names. Don't get me wrong. I would think it'd be unbelievable to have Arenado and Goldschmidt, but St. Louis is trying to win divisions too, and they're like, okay, we're done. And the Tigers are in on both those guys. Probably wouldn't get both. Probably get one or the other. Let's get to the daily wager. What did you have yesterday? And what do you have for us today? It's brought to you by Soaring Eagle Casino Resort and their sportsbook Ascend, which is an awesome place to go check out any game that interests you. Go ahead.
Well, yesterday I overzealously took CeeDee Lamb 2 touchdowns, and you know what? He scored the first touchdown of the game, so I was feeling optimistic about it, but obviously did not come to fruition. Tonight, we've got Big Ten college basketball, Illinois hosting ranked Wisconsin. I'm taking the under 154 points. I actually think Illinois has a decent college basketball atmosphere. It's a little slept on. I love their student section, the Orange Crush. It's a tough place to play. This is going to be a classic bruiser, Big Ten type of game, maybe a 65-60 final. And in that case, I'll go under 154 points tonight for Illinois and Wisconsin.
All right. Sounds good. The atmosphere at Illinois it's okay.
I just think it's underrated. It's not talked about. And maybe it shouldn't be, but I think
there's a reason it's not talked about.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's Penn State, which is awful, or Rutgers, which is awful. But it's nowhere close to Mackey or Breslin. Nowhere close.
No, and I would never argue that. I just think it's middle of the pack in a Big Ten conference, which has some really, really good atmospheres.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. Indiana's a better atmosphere. I would rank, I go Purdue, MSU, Indiana.
That's the top 3, no question. I'm with you there.
Yeah, but I don't think.
But after that, I mean, I think Illinois is better than Michigan. Maybe on par.
I think they're pretty similar. Like you said, there's a lot of really good atmospheres in the Big Ten. I would push back on that slightly. 3 outstanding. The rest are like nobody goes into Northwestern and goes, "Holy crap, how are you?" Wisconsin's big. Ohio State's big. Do they get super loud? I don't think Ohio State's a great basketball.
Wisconsin's a better one than Ohio State is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, if you've been to these places, and I've been to all of them, been to UCLA, haven't been to USC, haven't been to Oregon. UCLA is okay. It's just okay. Doesn't make you stop. I mean, places that make you stop are probably more in the ACC. When you go to North Carolina, you go to Duke,
Cameron Indoor,
12, or you go to Kansas. I mean, those places make you stop. Louisville makes you stop, right? Kentucky, of course. Quick thought here: Russell Wilson has won a Super Bowl in Seattle. He's been a hell of a player in his career. He said the other day, I think, first of all, we've got guys to win the Super Bowl. And he would know, all right? This is not blowing smoke. He said we got the right mentality, the right leadership, the right head coach. There's nobody better. We've got the best kicker. I think we've got the organization. It's special. I think everything is possible to win a Super Bowl in Pittsburgh. I don't know how many people truly believe that outside of their room, but it's hard to not at least give them some recognition in the AFC. All those things that he was telling Bill Cowher on the NFL Today show made me think of the Detroit Lions. The Lions have all of that. We'll get to that when we come back, and some of the best quarterback wide receiver combos and how the Lions combo is underrated. That's next when we close things up on a Tuesday morning after that.
How would you like to run the Bank of America Chicago Marathon or the BMW Berlin Marathon?
God, I love this song. I mean, it really is one of my favorite songs. It's just, if you're on the treadmill, I mean, just forget the water, forget what's ever on TV, forget the person running in front of you. You just take off and you start sprinting. I'm going to crank it up right now. You get on the bench, you throw an extra 25 on there, and sure, you may need some help. Can you spot me, please? But you're going to get at least one more, right? I hope so. Welcome back, X's and Bros, Monday through Friday, 6 until 9. Real quick, and then we'll dive into this combo of quarterback and wide receiver and what Russell Wilson said about the Steelers this year. And as a Super Bowl winning quarterback, he should know if a team is good enough and has the right ingredients. What are those ingredients? I'm sure that varies at times, but there is a common denominator among all Super Bowl winning teams. I ask this of coaches quite a bit. I don't care if you're going for a state championship like Herb Brogan and Jackson Lumen Christie, you're going for a national championship like Kirby Smart, or you're going for a world championship like possibly Dan Campbell. I ask this of coaches. What is the DNA of your team and how it compares? I don't like comparing teams. It's not fair because every team is different. But there is a certain characteristic about your team that you can have from past successful teams. So if you've been on a really successful team in the past, or if Kirby Smart has won a championship before, or in this case, Herb Brogan has won a national or a state championship before, what's the common denominator? What's the DNA of your team? Oftentimes, many of those coaches, no matter what level, what they'll say, work ethic. There's something about this team that we are willing to work as hard as we need to. They'll use that. Leadership is another one. They talk about that too. And then, of course, there are other nuances. When Russell Wilson says, I think, first of all, we've got the guys that can do it. That's a generic statement. But then he gets specific. We've got the right mentality. That's big, right? We've got the right leadership. We've got the right head coach, which kind of coincides with leadership. He's probably talking about leadership in the locker room and on the sidelines. World's best kicker, that always helps. Hey, listen, you feel good with Jake Bates? I mean, yeah, right. Can't hurt. Jake Bates. And the organization. I mean, there you go, right there. The lineage, the linear aspect of what football and what Russell Wilson finds valuable, I think is really valuable. I think it's something that the Lions have right now. So I think it's really cool. But I wanted to bring this up. I just saw a report. There's roughly 1,000 players in the transfer portal already from college athletics, college football, roughly 1,000. Day one had over 700 kids in the transfer portal. A year ago, that same span, first day, 523. Now you've got about 1,000. You're going to have well over 1,000, right? The class of 2023, the quarterback class of 2023, the top 10 quarterbacks, only 4 remain with their program. Only 4. It's incredible. It really is. It's exactly what we expected. At least, I mean, Trent and I were talking about this during the break. He said, I never envisioned this. I envisioned this from a player movement standpoint, and I said this a decade ago. I said, it's going to be wild, wild west, and it's going to be free agency. What I didn't expect is the amount of money being spent. What I expected was if you get $100,000, $200,000, it's going to be something else, man, right? I never expected people getting tens of millions of dollars.
Because it truly was name, image, likeness. Yeah, because we've only been doing this for what, 3-4 years?
Right. So what I expected was when people used to use this phrase and start screaming, these kids deserve to get paid. And I've told this story a number of times. I'll continue to tell it. I've been there with kids at the national championship, and I see the demands on their time. And I don't disagree with it. I don't disagree that they should be compensated somehow, some way. not sure even people like Jay Billis, who seems to, want to take over the NCAA but won't do it, and give his 2 cents every time there's a basketball program. This is what the NCAA has to do. Thanks, Jay. Really appreciate it. But anyway, what I didn't envision is the amount of money. I thought what was going to happen is you were going to see these kids go to a local dealership, a local card signing, a jersey signing, go to the local bookstore or a big name business in town and say, I'm going to sign some basketballs today. I'm going to sign some jerseys today, and I'm going to get paid $5,000. I'm going to get paid $7,000 for 2 hours. I'm going to go and I'm going to do a commercial for a local business, and I'm going to get paid $10,000. Things like that. I think those are just some of the things. Or when you drive into Spartan Stadium or you drive into the Big House and you see down some of these light poles, you see the faces of Aiden Childs, or you see the face of a guy who is a big name like Will Johnson or Colston Loveland, and they get paid for that. Or they get paid for the sale of their jerseys. I mean, that's kind of where the mindset was, where it was steered. Now, all it is strictly pay to play. Come here and play, we'll give you this. That's what it is. It's not NIL. They try to tell you that, but it's not. It's strictly pay for play. There is a difference, I believe. So the transfer portals, here are the quarterbacks from that 2023 top 10 quarterbacks. How many have stayed? 4. Arch Manning at Texas. The kid at Tennessee, Nico, I'll butcher his name. I don't know how to say his name. I'm Aliva. That's 2. Then there is Christopher Vizina from Clemson, who doesn't play. And there's Avery Johnson from Kansas State. That's it. 4 of the top 10. Like Dante Moore came from the state of Michigan, came from Martin Luther King, originally agreed to play at Oregon, then changed his commitment, went to UCLA, and now he's transferred back to Oregon. I don't know if he plays. I don't know where he is on that depth chart. But speaking of quarterbacks, saw this the other day, and it really grabbed my attention. If I said to you, I don't know if you've seen this, so if you have, Trent, we need an answer from somebody else. If I said to you, give me the best quarterback wide receiver combo in the NFL, who's the first combo that comes to mind? I think it's obvious. I mean, anybody.
Burrow, Chase.
Yeah, it's obvious.
Yeah.
Burrow leads the league in passing. Chase leads the league in receiving yards. Burrow leads the league in touchdown passes, 33 after 3 last night. Chase leads the league in receiving touchdowns with 15 with 2 last night. After that, I think it's, I don't want to say a crapshoot, but you can make the argument for a lot of different combos. I don't know where you go. Where would you have the Lions combo of Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Like you said, after number 1, there's a lot of arguments to be. I think I go to Stafford Cup. That's probably my number 2.
Okay.
But after, I would say just off the top of my head, Goff, St. Brown has to be top 5.
Yeah, they've got them listed at 4, but they don't even have Stafford and Cup.
Well, that's ridiculous.
Because they have Stafford with Puka Nacua.
Oh, okay. So they have Stafford in there, but just
sure.
They picked a different receiver.
Correct. And they've got them at 13. There's actually one quarterback who has a combination with his receiver or a different receiver in the top 20. So one quarterback is listed in there twice. If you had to guess, which quarterback would that be?
CJ Stroud.
Because of the receivers, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good guess. That's a really good guess. This stunned me. It's Jalen Hurts. So Jalen Hurts, they have listed at 2 with A.J. Brown, and they have him listed at 20 with Devontae Smith.
I could see that. Yeah. I think 2 with A.J. Brown's a little high, but I get the point of putting 2 in the top 20.
I thought the same thing. Quite honestly, I was going to go with Stafford because of Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, maybe they're basing that on Cooper Kupp's been hurt, so they're not. He's kind of out of sight, out of mind. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think those guys are as good as it gets.
Yeah, that's probably true. I suppose you could say the same thing about Mike Evans, right? Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans, but they're listed at 10. I think there's two that are underrated in this list. One is Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin. They lifted them at number 9, and I think they are better.
That's a good one.
I would take that combo over Tua Tagovailoa and Tyreek Hill. They're listed at 8. Hill's been hurt. Tagovailoa's been hurt. Maybe it's supposed to be strictly as, healthy as they are. But I would take them over that. They've got CJ Stroud and Nico Collins at 6. They've got Lamar Jackson and Zay Flowers at 5. Disagree with that. Jared Goff, Amon-Ra St. Brown at 4. The 3 that are ahead of them, I already gave you the Burrow and Jamar Chase, and that's obvious, and that's the way it should be. Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and then this one might piss you off slightly. Let's see. Sam Darnold and Justin Jefferson.
That does not work for me at all. Okay. I get it because Justin Jefferson, I think, is the best receiver in football. So how low can he be on that list, no matter who's throwing him the ball? Mm-hmm. But that is not a better connection than Goff to St. Brown. No way.
It's one of 2 duos with over 1,000 yards on the season. The other is Burrow and Chase. Does that change your mind at all?
No, because again, I think Sam Darnold is a reliable, very average quarterback. To me, Goff is much better, and then St. Brown is obviously not as good as Justin Jefferson.
Remember, this isn't necessarily about the one quarterback. This is about the combo.
Yeah.
The Darnold to Jefferson combo, when he throws to Jefferson, is at almost 12 yards per completion. That's impressive.
Yeah, and Darnold deserves credit for that because you got to have someone to get him the ball. But to me, that says way more about Jefferson than it does about Darnold.
Yes.
And therefore, I can't give the combo too much credit. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I respect that, and I understand it. I think we all do this. I probably do this more than you do. But you're caught up in Sam Darnold, and you just don't like him, nor do you believe in him. Period. You just don't. And nothing he can do outside of maybe beating Detroit, winning the division, reaching the Super Bowl, maybe even that, can convince you otherwise. It takes a lot to prove. I say this all the time. And again, this isn't on you. This is on both of us. It happens with me all the time. It takes a lot to change our mind. We are convinced at one thing, and then we can use examples. I'll give you this example. Earlier in the show, we were talking about Torkelson. You believe last year is who he is more than the year before. That's fair. Okay. I don't think you're alone there. Because it's what have you done for me lately? If that's the case, why don't you use that same philosophy with Sam Darnold? Why is he not the guy this year than he has been in the past?
If I can answer that quite honestly, maybe this is unfair, but it's because we have 6 years of him being a backup, benched, not living up to his draft selection. You know what I mean? It's just we had 6 years of that, and he's been a journeyman a little bit. And credit to him for taking advantage of this opportunity. I brought up the Geno Smith example yesterday. It reminds me a lot of that, too, with what he's done in Seattle. So there is precedent for this.
No,
when there's 6 years of average and 1 year of good.
And I knew you were going to go there. I knew you were going to go. But if you
6 years,
use that as a longer example, and that's your reason, then why would you believe when there's such a small example for Spencer Torkelson?
Yeah, I don't think it's a perfect.
What you're doing is you're using a long example for a guy for not believing in it. Fair enough. But you're also using a short example for a guy for not believing in it. Which is it?
Well, I don't think you can draw that parallel across sports exactly because I do think it's different.
In what way?
Baseball is different because there's the minor leagues, there's coming up, doing all that, getting sent down, up and down. Like Sam Darnold's been benched and stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Which, from that standpoint, it's similar to what's happened with Torkelson. And if you're asking me,
I'm asking why you use length of service on not believing in one guy, but you don't use it for another. That's all.
I just, in my heart of hearts, believe Torque is the player he was last year, not 2 years ago. That's all. I can't really give you a great answer.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Yeah. I was just wondering.
And if, by the way, if Sam Darnold, if the Vikings go out and make the playoffs and win a playoff game or two, then obviously
they're gonna make the playoffs.
They're going to make the playoffs. If they win a playoff game or two, maybe I'll change my mind on them. Yeah.
Oh, all right. So that's why these are such fun conversations, because people have burned me on this too. You're saying wins 1 or 2. Which one is it?
Well,
So
if they win a playoff game and he doesn't play well, that's not going to change my mind about Sam Darnold.
I see.
So if you might have to win 2 to then prove to me that what he's done this year is sustainable for a 10-2 Vikings team.
Right. And I don't know if it would be. I don't know. I mean, if I'm Minnesota going into next year, do I want Sam Darnold as my starting quarterback? I mean, you and I would probably say no.
Right, because they drafted JJ, and that was their plan.
Well, that doesn't, to me, I don't give a crap about that. I'm talking about the guy. I mean, he deserves to go in as the starter, does he not?
Yeah, he does.
I believe he does. Yeah. There's been plenty of quarterbacks who haven't played well in a playoff game, and yet your team still won. Is it always on them? Do they get the credit where they deserve? I don't know. I mean, I just know this, and I'm not a big Sam Darnold fan. I just answered the question. I don't think he gets nearly enough credit for what he's doing. I wouldn't put him ahead with Justin Jefferson above Jared Goff and Amon-Ra St. Brown, because those guys, when you look at together, 81 completions, 900 yards, 10 touchdowns, it's more than Darnold and Jefferson together, and they complete 82% of the passes. Amon-Ra St. Brown doesn't drop the ball, and Jared Goff's more accurate. That's why I think they belong ahead of him. Really good show. Enjoyed it very much. Thanks for all your time. We appreciate the texts, the phone calls. We're back with you tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. X's and Bros across the great state of Michigan. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.
Huge here for my good friend Josh Garvey. Now, Josh joins me in studio every Thursday.